Hello and welcome to Brno in the Czech Republic. This is the venue for round 2 of the FIA GT Championship. We'll start our action with the Super Pole runoffs. It's cold, it's windy, it's been snowing in the Czech Republic. Think yourselves lucky if you're in a slightly warmer, drier part of Europe this Easter Sunday. Happy Easter to you and welcome to Brno for this second Eurosport Super Racing weekend. We'll start with the action from the FIA GT Super Pole. And these are the drivers that we'll see. The top half dozen in the GT class and the top half dozen in the NGT class. They will go in reverse order of their qualifying speed in the first session. And David Leslie, for most of these drivers, although the Brno track has been around since the 1930s as a motorcycle Grand Prix venue, first on a track through the woods and the town of Brno, and since 1987 this purpose-built motordrome. For most of these drivers, I think this is going to be a voyage of discovery.
Yes, quite a lot of them have not been here before. They had a first race last year for these cars here, so one or two of them have seen it and do like it. And it's a 5-kilometre circuit, very twisty, as we can see. So very interesting circuit, very tight circuit, and it'll take a lot out of the drivers trying to get around this rather long circuit.
Well, undoubtedly the man who knows the track best is this man, the first of our Super Pole runners. This is Thomas Enger, the Czech. This is his home track. He's done an awful lot of national racing here and still does the occasional guest appearance on national Czech events here. Competed in the FIA Formula 3000 competition, as you'll have seen live on Eurosport on Friday and Saturday. So he's flown in from Imola to do qualifying for the GTs, and he is the first man away on the Super Pole runs. And as before, these will set the top 12 positions on the grid. The rest of the field will start from 13 downwards, no matter what their respective times. And after snow and rain in practice, chance to actually take on a bitterly cold but still dry track, I think will be relished by the Czech. Now, we're talking to Jamie Campbell-Walter a few minutes before the session started. He was saying that the GT3Rs particularly should be able to get a bit of heat into their tyres, but don't necessarily expect the bigger, more powerful GT cars to be able to go quicker. David, Thomas Enger already showing signs of commitment here with that locked wheel early on.
You can see him coming down into that corner. He was really trying very hard. He's putting all the effort into this. This guy's fresh from a race earlier in the weekend and from the 3000 race, and he's up for it at the moment. You can see how hard he's trying. He's leaning on the car through the corners. He's got a nice dry circuit at this moment in time, but as we've seen over the weekend so far, it's not always been that way.
Well, the drivers were joking about it. Boris de Richebourg from the Belmondo team joking that they were actually fighting each other to have a go in the car because it was the warmest place that they could find in the Czech Republic. Now, that's not normally what you'd find. Vipers are normally a little bit too hot, but apparently they quite like the heating effect here. It really is almost sub-zero still, even though there is no sign of the snow that blighted Friday and the snow and sleet of Saturday. And again, Enger, as the wheel gets unladen, turning there into the uphill left-hander, just locking the brakes. Seems to have a reasonable amount of grip. The car doesn't seem to be running too wide on him, but still in these temperatures having to be a little bit tentative in the first couple of corners of the flying lap, just to make sure that you have got enough grip into the tyres during your warming up lap. So the Czech will set the first mark. 2:06.5.64 for Thomas Enger, and Wolfgang Kaufmann in the Freisinger Motorsport Porsche is next up. Now, Kaufmann actually has raced here before. In fact, his memories of the Brno track are from its very earliest days, where he won an Easter Formula 3 race, and so he's hoping to produce those kind of goods again. Well, Kaufmann always a trier. Again, you can hear, David, just from the engine notes, that the commitment you would see if it was 20 degrees warmer is just not able to be applied purely because of the temperatures.
Now, what's happening here is these guys have to start on cold tyres when they come out of the pits. They've got one lap to warm those tyres up before they start their flying lap, which is what we're watching now. and they really have to weave around and get some heat into those tyres. And when it's as cold as it is at the moment, then you simply cannot get the heat in that you want. These tyres work best around about 90 to 100 degrees, and they certainly haven't got anywhere near that at the moment. They are very much cold, and they're slipping and sliding around. You can see where they're braking. They're locking the front wheel up because there isn't a grip there to be able to try and retard the car, stop the car. And for the third time on this lap, you can see them locking up into that corner. So he's working as hard as he can to get as much heat into it. As this timed lap goes on, he obviously wasn't able to manage it throughout the warm-up lap, but they're trying all the time. And like Thomas before, he's giving it what he can round there, all the way over the curbs as he's coming out to come up this hill, back towards, turning around towards home.
Well, you might wonder why he's still looking so neat, and the slide there shows exactly why, because he's got some heat in the tail end if he slides it around, but you still have to get the nose of the car into the corners, and that really is as much of a problem as anything else. You can always spin up the rear tyres to warm them a little bit, but you can't do the same with the front end, and he's using all the curbing and a little bit more. And with the track temperatures down at just above freezing, can't really be more than 2 degrees centigrade on the track, and you need 100 degrees in the tyres. You can imagine just the way, if you walked out with nice warm feet, nice warm bare feet onto a track that cold, you pretty soon feel the temperature draining out from the soles of your feet. And that's exactly what happens to the tyres the moment they start rolling. So Kaufmann then unable to match Enger's time, 2:06.678, but showing a degree of commitment at least. Now there was, David, at Monza, oh dear, I was going to say at Monza there was two different schools of thought: survive it or really push hard. Bruno Eichmann, I think, looking as though he pushed a little too hard, and that is rain. You can see falling there in the camera shot. Bruno Eichmann going off on his warm-up lap, not even getting a chance to start.
And we can see now Luca Riccitelli out there, and you can see the wipers are on. He's got a wiper on this Red Bull car here. Obviously it's raining out there. We could just see some spits on the camera, but it's stepping around quite a lot at the back with these cars. Once it starts to rain and gets a bit damp, then all of a sudden these cars are going to go quite a bit slower. And here on the warm-up lap you can see he's been trying to put some heat in. He's decided there's not enough heat in there, so he's weaving it around to try and get a lot more heat into the tyres before he starts his timed lap.
The danger there, though, of course, with such a low coefficient of grip, is just giving it too much of a wiggle and spinning the thing around, which won't help you much, because the tyres used in Superpole here are one marked set. Every single car has to have a marked set of tyres for Superpole, whether they're used in Superpole or not, and it's those tyres that the car must start the race on. So if you flat spot your tyres or really destroy them badly in Superpole, then obviously you're going to start the race in need of a new set, which is less than ideal. Riccitelli on his warm-up lap then, so far, again, very slithery. And Jamie Campbell-Walter's prediction of a Porsche on pole for the race may not be that far away. Certainly if it gets to rain seriously before the Vipers and the Listers come out in the GT class, David, I think that they will really struggle with twice the horsepower and nothing more in the way of grip.
We've certainly seen on the first two cars out, Thomas Engen and Wolfgang Kaufmann, you know, they were out there on a fully dry circuit and they were pushing those cars very hard indeed. And it's raining now, so all that will happen is we will get slower from this point onwards. There we are, he's trying hard. You can see there Luca really stepping on it, a bit more white smoke from the tyres as it locks up going into the corners, and this car's weaving about all over the place. Wipers going there, so you know it's definitely raining out there. He's going to have an uphill struggle to get anywhere near the time to the first two cars.
Well, there are three forces in action here: the front end, the back end, both trying to break away, and Riccitelli trying to rein them all in. But as you can see, it's understeering on the way into corners, and then the moment he even thinks about the throttle, it's starting to oversteer on the way out. And that's big lockup down the hill into the first sequence of corners, much more noticeable than Thomas Enger. Thomas Enger's, I think, was pushing hard, but I would think Riccitelli probably brakes where he would normally have braked, and the lockup is because the track is even more slippery, and just the wheels could find very little in the way of grip. You could see how late he had to brake into the corner to try and get it through, and the same, I think, is proving true. He's having to be a little bit more cautious, I'm sure, than he would like to be.
But nevertheless, you've got the option here, as we said earlier, of really pushing hard and going for a time, or being very sensible about it, looking after your tyres, because these are the tyres you have to start the race on, as we said before. You've got the two options, and I would think at this point, when you can see the rain coming down, everybody from this point onwards, if it continues to rain, will take the easy option and do a reasonably good lap, make sure that A, don't spin the car, ruin the tyres, and they get a reasonable time to get a place somewhere in that top 12.
Well, again, for the NGT runners, the GT3R Porsches starting in among the GT cars, and with more faster GT cars right behind them, the first couple of corners will be interesting for them. At Monza, at least, we had a long straight for the GT cars to go by into the first turn. Not the case here at Brno. It's all medium and slow corner stuff, and neither of the streets particularly long. We'll be back in a moment with the GT cars then. Back at Brno for the second Eurosport Super Racing weekend. I'm Martin Haven, alongside me David Leslie, once more introducing some reason and common sense into the discussions. And you can do likewise if you'd like to contact us. We are the Car Guys, all one word, at Eurosport.com. The Car Guys at Eurosport.com. We won't have too much of a chance to answer your emails in this qualifying show, but during tomorrow's programme on Monday, we will certainly try and do as many as possible. Thank you very much, incidentally, to all of you who emailed us over the Monza weekend. Gratifying to know that you enjoyed the racing as much as we did. And hopefully Brno, whatever the weather, will produce much more of the same. David, water on the camera lens. It's clearly still wet for the GT cars, and that's going to mean that life is even more tricky than for the Porsche drivers.
It is, without doubt. It's going to be that bit slippier. What we're looking at now is one of the Vipers, the Paul Bimondo Viper, and it doesn't have the wiper on at the moment, so maybe it's stopped raining a little bit. I'm not sure. As we look at the pictures, we can see just a little bit of spray coming out the side of the car, not very much, so it is obviously still damp there. But this car looks as though it's doing a nice, neat, tidy job at this moment in time, not stepping out too much. So there's a possibility, you know, the rain can come and the rain can go, so it may be that just some of the cars in the middle will get the wettest part, and then towards the end of the session it'll dry up again. We just don't know. We'll have to wait and see.
Paul Belmondo Racing's three cars looked strong in qualifying at Monza. That's a combination of circumstances really mitigated against them faring so well. The Lister, which won, Jamie Campbell-Walter's car, and the second place Viper, the Charot sponsored car of the Labra competition team, were very much quicker than any of the Belmondo cars once the race got settled down, and we saw a bit of a sort of two-tiered division at the top of the GT class, with the three Belmondo cars battling amongst themselves and with the Ferraris, and the fastest of the Vipers heading off with the Lister. And I wouldn't be at all surprised to see much the same sort of thing here. The big problem for the Belmondo team really is that they don't have the Michelin tyres that the Labra competition team and the Listers have, and Michelin is certainly a very strong tyre to use, not just in terms of its ability to withstand the G-cornering loads, which all the tyres will do, but particularly because it doesn't seem to lose performance over the course of a long run in the way that, say, the Goodyears and the Dunlops that some of the other teams are using do tend to. Well, the target of Enger's Porsche, 206.564 and 207.765 for Didier Deforny in what should be unquestionably a much quicker Viper. David, it looks as though Jamie Campbell-Walter may possibly have money on the right horse if he's backing a Porsche for pole.
It's certainly beginning to look that way, obviously, because it was so slippy out there. The guys decided to make sure they got round, didn't do anything stupid, and keep their tyres in good condition ready for the race, on the hope that it'll be dry when the race starts tomorrow.
Well, this is the 11 car, 10, 11 and 12. All three of the Belmondo Vipers are in the 6 cars from the GT class going through the Super Pole.
The difference in practice between the GT cars and the NGT cars was some 5 seconds in the dry, and all of a sudden now when you see it starts to get a bit of dampness out there, the GT cars were doing their normal time, the NGT cars were doing their normal times, 206s, but all of a sudden the bigger GT cars here, these Vipers, they've slowed up considerably from the 159s that they were doing, down to this 2:07. So they've lost 7 or 8 seconds basically.
Now, we talked about the fact that it snowed and rained on Friday and Saturday. What kind of problems is that likely to produce for the teams if they end up with a dry race? One of the main things they won't really have been able to get much of a grip of so far is what fuel consumption is like on a dry Brno track.
No, the dry run they've had so far has been very limited. So what they need is some long runs on a dry circuit to work out exactly the fuel consumption. This is a fuel consumption race. So they've got to be able to do the race with a couple of stops, and that's all. If they have to put extra stops in there, then they all of a sudden can be losing lots of places at the finish line. But if it keeps on going like this, and they throw some rain or some snow at it as we've had so far, then that'll make life an awful lot easier for the team managers working out what to happen in the race, because they can come in and out more or less when they want to, rather than being tied to a specific time because the car is using too much fuel. So the rain and the snow could play into the team manager's hands. It could make more of a race, a straight race, rather than have to worry about fuel consumption.
Well, we'll hope sincerely that Easter Monday will not bring us the first of Eurosport's snowy racing weekends, but there is just the possibility. Forecast for central area of the Czech Republic, where Brno is, the second city of the Czech Republic, about 500,000 inhabitants, is that it will be wet for the next 10 days and more. But it did, unfortunately for Monday, say rain and snow forecast. And, well, it's been a little bit of both so far for the weekend. I'm sure the drivers, who are all wrapped up very warm indeed, will hope for constant conditions, because about the worst thing to try and plan your race on will be if it starts dry and goes wet and then goes dry, or any combination of changing climate. 2:02.739 then from Manuel Clerico. Now that's a big improvement. David, he didn't really look at all wild or ragged, but he has gone quite a lot quicker.
He has. That's very, very good for that car. You could see when he was out, there was no wiper going on the car, and it looks as though it obviously stopped raining, so he had the benefit of a slightly drier track than the last driver. But as we can see looking here in the Labra car, Christophe Bouchot driving, and you can see it's raining on that windscreen and the wiper going all the time, and it's not intermittent or anything, it's on going permanently. So it's starting to rain yet again. Each of these individual cars that are coming out to do this qualifying lap time are getting different conditions, so each of the cars are going up and down, and I can see this car being a little bit slower than a Manuel Clerico's car.
Yeah. This is just 2 cars later. Boris de Richebourg, the third of the Belmondo cars, going before the Labra competition machine. And you're right, the weather has changed again. Not that it's raining heavily particularly, just a tiny little sprinkle of water, just enough to slicken up the surface a bit. And of course, when you're talking of tenths of a second or a second on a 2.5 mile lap, then that's all you really need to put the time out of your reach. Clerico's time, the pole position at the moment, then not being held by an NGT Porsche, but by a GT Class Viper. And you know that if he can get close enough, Christophe Bouchot certainly will give it a big go. But we saw right from the first couple of corners, the car's really trying not to turn in for him. And you can see the way the nose keeps darting towards the apex of the corner, that he is having to have several stabs at the wheel to try and get it on the line that he wants. 2:04.126, and that puts him currently in second spot, so it will be a Viper front row, unless the Lister drivers can do something about it. This is the slower of the pair in the first practice session, Jamie Campbell-Walter.
You can see again here on the windscreen, the rain is coming down a little bit harder. The screen's here highly polished, so when the rain hits it, it runs off straight away. It's worked for 2 reasons. One, the angle of the windscreen is reasonably acute, and you're going quite quickly out there.
Oh dear.
Maybe a little bit too quickly at some times. He went into that corner and the car didn't do what he wanted it to do. He did say earlier on that he wasn't happy if it was going to rain or snow here during qualifying, and he might just pot around in order to make sure he qualifies. He wasn't too unhappy about where he would finish up within the top 12, knowing that he started so far back at Monza at the end of the 12th on the grid, and was able to come through within a number of laps up to second and follow Christophe Bouchot for quite a while before he eventually took the lead of the race, going on to win. So we'll see in a minute or two when he starts this lap, or maybe this is the actual qualifying lap. But it's certainly looking damp out there all the time. He's left the windscreen wiper off. The Rain-X, the stuff they put on the windscreen to try and make sure that the rain runs off. Obviously doing a very, very good job there.
Which is more than you can say for the tyres. Again, running way off the line in the last couple of sequence of corners. You could see him going for the apex, and then it just disappeared to the left, out of shot. And he had enough road there to keep it all together. But the Jaguar V12 doesn't really sound like it's being strained very hard, does it here? I think he is absolutely in cruise back to the pits mode. He did say that the only thing that he was concerned about was not damaging the car, and the worst he can start now is 11th place, because we've already seen Bruno Eichmann's car off in the gravel, so he will be absolutely last of these 12. So Jamie, the worst he could possibly be is 11th, even if he cruised round here in first gear. Well, keeping the engine warm by opening the throttle a wee bit down the straight, but Jamie Campbell-Walter's certainly not going to take any chances, and I wonder whether Julian Bailey will opt for similar tactics. 2:13, 1:33, not as quick as half of the Porsches. So the man who was fastest in the first qualifying session, don't forget that for everybody other than these 12, there is a second 15-minute final dash of qualifying after Superpole to finally establish positions 13 and down on the grid. Positions 1 to 12 will be decided by Superpole. Well, Julian Bailey, having failed to get out in Superpole at Monza because the car ran into a fuel problem, and then having failed to start... no, in fact, it wasn't fuel there, was it? He had a broken bell housing, and they were worried the gearbox would drop out as soon as he engaged the gear. He failed to take the start at Mons because of a fuel problem. Jamie Campbell-Walter had that in qualifying. In the end, what it was muck in the fuel blocking the injectors, so the car was misfiring chronically. So let's see if he can now put that to rights. Cars have been running smoothly enough so far in practice.
Julian's one person who will try very hard right from the word go. Given the conditions, it's not going to be easy for him, so we'll see what happens. But having said that, he's just potted round that corner very slowly indeed, and it doesn't look as though Julian's going to go out there and try and set the world alight with a time on this particular lap. Maybe he's watched and talked to Jamie on the first lap.
Yeah, he went 11th fastest there, which in fact isn't fast at all. It's slowest of all the runners. So this is how they finished off in Superpole. Clerico fastest of all, and that's another good shot from the Viper, and 3 Vipers ahead of a pair of Porsches. The other Belmondo Viper in 6th position, and the fastest of the listers, Jamie Campbell-Walter, perhaps least slow would be the best word, in 9th position. No disrespect to the car or the drivers, I think they did entirely the most sensible thing. David Cherian's Ferrari didn't really go very quickly, and Julian Bailey slowest of all those who completed the lap.
Emmanuel, congratulations. What do you think is Superpole?
Now that I am in pole, I like it. It's my first one because I was not there in Monza. Unfortunately, I don't drive all the championship here, but I think it's a good result for the team and for me.
And will you be confident for the race tomorrow?
Yes, because the car is good. Yesterday in the free practice, we were always good. We are consistent. We have good tires, good time. The car is well balanced. So I think it's going to be good also for the race.
Thank you very much, Manuel. Congratulations.
All right, behind those top 12, we'll start the Hasemans Viper, or the best of the Hasemans Vipers, and then the 2 Ferrari 550s run by Gabriele Raffanelli. They will start 13th, 14th and 15th respectively. 4 more Vipers before we get down into the GT3Rs. So we'll be back in just a moment with more action from Brno and the Eurosport Super Racing Weekend.